I woke up at 3 in the morning to drive to Brooklyn and have my soul crushed by the men's basketball team. Hello, I'm Tegan Lamont.
And I'm Dana Pecora. As basketball season winds down, spring sports are heating up. You're watching a very sad episode of LaSalle TV's home for Explorer Athletics, SportsLine.
Welcome to SportsLine. We have a ton of content coming your way, including Isaiah Clark's interview with Track's Chris Lewis and a depressing installment of Sports Chat.
And later, as baseball plays its first conference games against Davidson, we'll check in with SportsLine correspondent Gia Lancey to give us a series preview in this week's Explorer Report.
But first, let's take a look at SportsLine Top 3.
The number one, the LaSalle Explorer made a special appearance along with the other A10 mascots on the Tonight Show with Salle. He competed in a three-point contest where he tied for second. He also competed in a slam dunk contest where he placed second, as well as finishing behind the St. Louis Billiken. Twice, his dunk was called the Philadelphia Firehouse. Look at that.
Wow.
Second's not bad at all, because at least we didn't lose our head. I'm looking at you, St. Bonaventure's Riley the Bonnell Wolf. At least something good came out of the A10 tournament.
Yeah, I mean, we got some press. Good for us. Number 2, you may have heard us say Jaren Reese's name a lot the last few weeks because of her play on the basketball court. But now she has transitioned from the court to the diamond. Following her senior basketball season, Reese walked on to the softball team and made her first appearance last week. Against Quinnipiac, Reese pinch ran for Mackenzie Vogler in the 6th inning. However, the inning ended on a pop-up shortly after. The next day, against Butler, Reese pinch ran for Vogler again. This time, she was out at second on a fielder's choice after a comebacker to the pitcher.
Number 3, sophomore Ron Fishang made a statement in the golf team's first outing of 2019. At the Bash at the Beach, the sophomore standout set a new program record for most under par rounds in a single season after recording 4 under par in day 2 of the competition. Fishang is now carded a better than ever game 4 times this season. The number breaks a program record set by PJ Asierno in 2015. Fishang's performance also put him on the all-tournament team. Okay, so it's no surprise that we're really sad about basketball, and we'll talk more about them. It was really cool about the mascots, but I want to talk about Jaren Reese.
Yeah.
I love this girl. So she had an outstanding season as a senior on the basketball team, really stepped up, was one of the only upperclassmen, and now she's walking onto the softball team. Like, I think that's awesome and so much fun for her.
Yeah, I was looking through Go Explorers one day, or my friend was actually looking through it, and he said, Jaren Reese walked onto the softball team. She's on the roster, and I was kind of baffled. I was like, oh my goodness, that's kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But she's there. She's getting some playing time. I mean, she's not getting a ton of time, but she's a walk-on. She's not supposed to get starting innings, starting pitches, starting at-bats.
Yeah.
But she's getting some time, and she's going to try to help the team in whatever way she can.
Yeah, and it's funny, on Go Explorers, she's in the softball roster on her basketball uniform.
Yeah.
I just think it's so funny. But good luck to Jaren. We love you. Hopefully we can get her in soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all for this week's headlines. Let's see how our teams did over the last 2 weeks. Men's basketball wrapped up the regular season with a senior day at Tom Gola Arena. Steven Silvestro has the coverage.
On Saturday, March 9th, the LaSalle men's basketball team hosted Fordham for senior night. After honoring graduate students Poogie Powell, Chetty Mosley, and other personnel, the Explorers grabbed a commanding lead right off the bat, building a 23-9 lead. The rest of the first half went back and forth, with neither team shooting well. The Explorers shot 36%, while the Rams shot 24%. However, LaSalle held a 30-18 lead going into halftime. LaSalle started the second half with another streak of 16-5. The Explorers held the lead for the rest of the game by at least 13 points and building as much as 30. Powell co-led the team with 14 points before getting his swan song. Jared Kimbrough also scored 14 points while bringing down 8 boards and blocking 2 shots. This commanding 72-57 win over Fordham sealed LaSalle as the 9 seed in the A10 tournament. For SportsLine, I'm Steven Silvestro.
The Explorers followed up their impressive win on Senior Day with a game in the A10 tournament where they looked simply uninspired. They crashed and burned in this game, never really pushing Rhode Island throughout. At halftime, the Explorers were down 10, largely thanks to Rhode Island's big man, Cyril Langevin. Langevin had 17 points at the break and had shot a perfect 6 of 6 from the floor. The Explorers didn't truly have a player leading their charge, as David Beatty led the team in scoring at the half with just 5 points. Things would only get worse for the Explorers as they would trail by as much as 30 at one point in the second half. LaSalle's offense remained stagnant as they would finish with just 57 points on the night. The Rhode Island trio of Langevin, Fats Russell, and Jeff Downton would score 56 combined as Rhode Island rolled over LaSalle 76-57. The Explorers' stat leaders included Saul Peary with just 10 points, Tracy Carter with 5 assists, and Ed Croswell, who tied Langevin for a game-high 12 rebounds. I, along with Helen Stars and Steve Silvestro, were in Brooklyn to catch the action. Here's a special edition of SAD Sports Chat breaking down the day.
Welcome to another special edition of Sports Chat. This one's not as cheery as the other ones because we're talking A10 tournament LaSalle versus URI where we got dominated. We lost 76-57 and it wasn't even that close. I come here with Helen Stars and Tegan Lamone because we went to this game. We traveled to Brooklyn for this game. How did you guys feel traveling to Brooklyn for it?
I mean, it was not a particularly fun time. I did the driving to and from Brooklyn, and it honestly was just awful. Just the whole experience. I mean, it was supposed to be a fun time for us. We were supposed to go up there, enjoy ourselves, maybe watch another game after LaSalle won against Rhode Island, and that quickly fell flat. We were down by 10 at halftime, and it felt like we were down by 20 then.
Yeah, I felt kind of like we had wasted our time a little bit just because the game was just so far out of reach. I had packed a bag just in case we won, and I was packing. I was like, do I pack for going home tonight or possibly being here longer? And I felt kind of dumb afterwards because that wasn't really a thought during the game at all.
Yeah, very quickly early on, we all noticed we were shooting 25% in the first half. They shot 45% in the first half. Yeah. So quickly it went like that. But also Coach Howard said in his press conference afterwards that their goal was to get 2 charges before the first immediate timeout 4 minutes in. And they got 1 charge the entire first half. He used that as his example for what broke down so quickly. What do you guys think broke down so quickly?
I know in the press conference that you're talking about, he talked about Cyril Langevin and how he rolls super hard off the pick and roll. We didn't stop that once. I think Cyril Langevin had 25 points, and all of them came off dunks or free throws because he was getting to the basket whenever he wanted to. He wanted us to get charges on Cyril Langevin. He wanted us to step in and when he rolled to the basket, be right there and waiting for him, and we just didn't do it the whole game.
Yeah, he also kind of said the team just didn't really execute the game plan, and I think they kind of got startled by that in the beginning, and it just kind of snowballed from there and never really got better.
One thing I had, because I was on the one side, I was right in front of the Rhode Island band, right next to the cheerleaders, and their fan base right behind us. But one thing we did notice was LaSalle had a band for a day.
Yeah.
That was unique. How did you guys enjoy the band?
I mean, it's always nice to have a band at college sports. I think if we had a band here, it would be a much better environment. But, I mean, DJ Hooks or whatever his name is does a great job as well. So, I mean, I'm always up for the band. I hope they can somehow find a band to play at our home games.
Yeah, I haven't seen a band since maybe my freshman year, so it was pretty nice to have one there.
All right, but Tegan, you were on the other side of the court. You were in the LaSalle section.
Yeah.
But we do have a full screen picture of what was going on, and this was the second half, just so everybody knows. So we were already down. I think we were almost down by 30 at this point. And here you are. It's you, We got Beth Salazar, who is the digital person for the basketball team, and even
That's
the other
Maeve.
photographer.
Maeve Hughes behind her too.
Oh, Maeve is behind that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my outward expressions are what Coach Ashley Howard was feeling inside at that moment. It was not fun. I mean, we were just getting constantly battered, and we couldn't make. I actually think at that point there was a stretch where we didn't make a shot over and over and over again, and I just think.
In the first half, I think they went 6 minutes without scoring at one point. I was looking that up last night. I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah,
but
I don't think we had much to go with there, and there wasn't very much to enjoy sitting there watching that.
only one player hit double figures.
Yeah,
Saul was
and
the
that was
only, and he had
Saul
10.
Fury. But that's all we got for this edition of Sports Chat. So we're going to send it back to Tegan, who's right there, but he's on a different desk.
So I need a little rant because I didn't get to go on Sad Sports Chat, and I am super sad, obviously. I didn't get to go down to the A10 tournament, which I was really upset about.
Brooklyn's north.
Up.
Yes.
Did not get to go up to the A10 tournament. And I had plans to come back. You know, like I was excited. I was in Florida, and I was watching this game on the beach, and I had to turn it off. Basically, I was really upset throughout this whole time. I saw nothing from Pookie, nothing from Shag, nothing from anyone. And it's annoying to me because I feel like we could have beaten the majority of these teams. We had the potential to. It just depended on which team came out. Was it the team that beat the second in the conference Davidson, or was it the team that went 0-10?
Yeah.
And obviously, it was the team that went 0-10.
It was worse than the team that went 0-10.
I didn't even see, they put their best effort out there and lost. I saw nothing. It was like watching paint dry with.
At least you were on the beach. At least you weren't stuck in the arena and could turn it off. I was sitting there with the camera as they showed you, just taking a nap in the middle of the game.
I'm distraught, I'm upset, and I'm upset. That's it.
Not great.
Well, there's my rant. There's my sad sports
Good job.
chat. Anyway. Baseball team dropped 2 series against New Mexico State and Villanova in the first game of a 4-game series. LaSalle trailed New Mexico State by 2 in the 7th until Tommy Toll hit an RBI double to give LaSalle the go-ahead run. The Explorers won 9-8, but lost the next 3 games in the series. The Blue and Gold bounced back, capturing single-game wins over Delaware State and St. Peter's. The Explorers then completed a 3-game series against Villanova, where they only managed a win in Game 2. The 8-7 win was a team effort as the Explorers had 15 hits on the day. 5 different Explorers had multi-hit outings once again. The team earned 2 single-game victories. This time, the Explorers defeated Delaware 4-2 and Fairleigh Dickinson 19-9.
Softball spent spring break in Florida, where they competed in 2 different tournaments. At their first tournament in Jacksonville, the Explorers picked up a win over Georgetown, but were defeated in their remaining 4 games. The Blue and Gold suffered 2 losses to Presbyterian College and were also defeated by Cleveland State and the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. The Explorers had better luck in Clearwater, where they won 3 of their 5 games in the tournament. LaSalle dropped their first game against Columbia, but came back with a win against Brown. The Explorers made a statement in an 11-1 victory over Quinnipiac that ended in a 6th-inning mercy rule. They followed it with a 3-1 win over Army. The Explorers had their winning streak snapped in a 6-5 loss to Butler that went into extra innings. The Explorers returned to Philadelphia for a doubleheader against Penn. The Quakers held LaSalle scoreless in both games, winning the first 3-0 and the second 5-0.
Lacrosse started spring break on the road with a game against Marist. The Explorers trailed 6-5 after a hard-fought half. The teams kept it close in the second half, but the Red Foxes scored the go-ahead goal with just 3 minutes remaining. The Explorers were unable to come back and ultimately fell by a score of 12-11. Bridget Ruski and Maddie Dukowski scored 3 goals in the game. LaSalle looked to bounce back against Radford 3 days later. The team scored 13 goals in the first half and went on to win by a final score of 17-15. The 17 goals scored matched their season high for the Explorers. Anina Akabuchi and Dukowski scored 5 goals each, while teammates Sarah Elias and Ruski netted 2 apiece.
The men's golf team spent their spring break down south to catch some sun and compete in the Bash at the Beach in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The Explorers closed out the first day of play in 9th place. Sophomore Ron Fishang led the Blue and Gold, carting an even par after the first 2 rounds. Fishang then picked up speed the next day, shooting an impressive final round of 4 under par and earning himself a spot on the all-tournament team. The Explorers collectively carded 293 to finish in 7th place out of 13 teams competing.
The women's water polo team continued making history at the MAAC weekend, earning their first conference win in program history. In the first game of the weekend, LaSalle was dominated by Marist, who outscored the Explorers 12-1 in the second and third periods. The blue and gold moved on to face St. Francis Brooklyn in a competitive contest. Going into the final 3 minutes tied, junior Caitlin Kubo scored 20 seconds later, and LaSalle was able to hold on to the single-goal win. Next up, the Explorers took on the Iona Gales in what was overall a close game. However, a dominant third quarter by Iona led to their 15-8 win. To close out the weekend, LaSalle took on MVI, who scored with only 41 seconds left to win 13-12. Sophomore Sarah DeFusco scored half of the Explorers' 12 goals.
The men's tennis team had a difficult spring break as they dropped 3 matches to Indiana University, South Carolina State, and North Carolina Central. Against Indiana, sophomore Colin Lucius and freshman Nassim Fengiro earned wins in singles action, but it wasn't enough as the team fell 5-2. Then against South Carolina, senior Francesco Mauri won in straight sets in the number 1 spot, but the Explorers still lost 6-1. Lastly, LaSalle once again lost 6-1 against North Carolina Central, despite sophomore Rogelio Gonzalez winning in singles action.
Men's and women's rowing kicked off their 2019 season by hitting the school goal for the first time this year. The men's varsity 8 placed 3rd out of 4 teams with a time of 6 minutes and 8 seconds, edging out Villanova by nearly 5 seconds. A second men's varsity 8 finished first at a time of 5 minutes and 54 seconds, defeating Villanova by over a minute. The men's third varsity 8 finished in 6 minutes and 48 seconds. On the women's side, the women's varsity 8 and the second varsity 8 both placed last in their respective events. The first varsity 8 finished in under 7 minutes, while the second varsity 8 finished at just about 8 minutes. Well, that wraps it up on all the spring break action. When we come back, the reigning LTV Rookie of the Year sits down with an A10 first team track star. Stay tuned.
An egg. How does a general lose to an egg? Who loses to an egg?
You know, there is a show for that. It's called Backstage Pass.
Did you see the new library plan?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, they're doing stuff in the library.
Oh. In the library? Yeah. The new library. You know, there is a show for that called LTV News, where the action never stops.
I wonder how the basketball team is.
You know, there is a show for that called SportsLine.
So are you a Carson Wentz or Nick Foles guy?
More of a Nate Sudfeld team.
Oh, really? Interesting. Wonder where we can hear about Philly sports.
You know, there's a show for that called Sports Talk Philadelphia.
You like Family Feud?
Yeah.
You like all shows like that?
Yeah.
I wonder if LaSalle has a show like that. That'd be kind of cool.
There is a show for that called Q&A.
I really wish that we could just display our talents.
Yeah, me too.
There is a show for that called Explorers Got Talent.
All this and more on LaSalle TV.
Welcome back. Isaiah Clark sat down with Chris Lewis of the track and field team. Take a look.
Welcome to On the Sideline. My name is Isaiah Clark, and today I'm joined by track athlete Chris Lewis. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so I wanted to start off with your very first highlight of your freshman year. Your first collegiate debut, you won your race. How did that feel? Like going out there, the first time you're running for your team, for your school, and you go out there and win. How did that feel?
It was cool, sort of a shell shock. I expected to come in and just do my best. My coach had been training me pretty well in the preseason, and I got out there and I ran well in the prelims, and they were like, okay, just do that again, not expecting much. And then I got out there and I ran again and I won, and they were like hyping me up, everything, like, oh my God, a freshman just won. So I was shell shocked, but I was still, I knew there was more work to be done, so.
Yeah. Okay. So going off of that, so obviously you won your first collegiate race, but transitioning from high school to college, how was that jump in competition for you? Were you expecting it to be a very high skill jump, or were you expecting to come in, and compete?
I was expecting to come in and compete. My high school times actually were mediocre. I didn't really get good times until the summer. So high school competition was nothing compared to college competition. I knew that coming in, and still I was shocked by how athletic everyone was and how hardworking my teammates as far as other teams were. So it was a good transition though. I appreciate everyone pushing me and me pushing everyone else.
Yeah, and was there anyone on the team or like a coach in particular that like really helped you with that transition?
So many people. They're gonna get mad that I don't say everyone's name. But if I have to pick one person in particular, or two people in particular actually, the first person I ever met on the team, Dylan Burnett, he welcomed me in, he brought me into the team, really, introduced me to the culture and everything, and he really made it feel like home. And I call her my mentor. She's a senior 60-meter record holder, Ariel Mitchell. She broke the record like so many times this year. I go to her whenever I have questions, and I watch her form, and I watch how she runs, and I incorporate that in my race, which helped me all year.
Well, speaking of records, you also broke your own record. You broke a record this year as well. So how was that compared to like, when it coming out and winning your first race? How was like breaking a record also as well?
So that race was surprising. I had been trying to break the 60-meter record all year, and I came close one race, and I never quite got to that point again. So it was the last race of the season. Actually, it was a regional meet, so like a bunch of schools were there. It was the last race, and I was focused on the 60-meter, and I was like, the 200, I was just kind of like, whatever, I'll give what I got. And I ran it in prelims, and I ended up breaking the record, and I was really shocked. And then they were like, okay, tomorrow, just give it all you got. And then I ended up breaking the record again, my own record the next day. So I was really excited. I called my mom as soon as I got off the finish line, and I was like really happy. I couldn't stop smiling. It was a great time.
All right, so your first win, record breaker. You've got A10 Rookie of the Week. You got your all rookie for track and field. So like, what was like, in a season filled with like accomplishments, like what was like your favorite moment or accomplishment of the year?
Ooh, as far as accomplishment goes, I guess I would say the breaking of my record, but moment has to be like at practice, in the trenches with my teammates. Those are the best parts. That's what makes me, my teammates really keep me going. They're the reason I still do track, and it's, I mean, obviously I love the sport, but they give it an extra oomph to it, and I really appreciate them. So I would say like those really hard workout days where everyone's laying on the ground, dying, gasping for air, those are my favorite moments.
So we're going to switch a bit from athletics to like your student life. So like, what do you like major in here at LaSalle?
I'm an accounting major in the BS MBA program.
And like, in terms of your transition to campus life, how was that like as a student?
I think pretty well. I went to Calvert Hall High School, so it's a college preparatory school. So it really prepared me for the college life. So I didn't get that freshman culture shock because I was so used to it all 4 years of high school. So I've been transitioning really well so far.
All right. So just to hop right back, after this season, I think you have outdoors, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you plan on like building off the indoor season and like moving forward like the rest of your college career?
That's a hard question. So I mean, hard work, practice, eating right, sleeping right, the basics, talking to my coach, listening to her, just praying. That's basically all I could do. Just give it my all and hope for the best.
All right, and we got one last question for you. We want to like start. We really want to know like what got everybody into their sport. So like, how did you get involved in like track in the first place?
I wanted to do football, and I ended up quitting football. And track was just like, hey, we're taking people. So I was like, I'm fast. So I decided to give it a try.
All right. Well, that's all the questions I have for you. Thank you for joining me. So I've been Isaiah Clark, that's been Chris Lewis, and back to the desk.
Thanks, Isaiah. There's plenty of LaSalle sports action this upcoming week, so let us welcome Gia Lancey for this week's Explorer Report.
Thanks, Dana. This weekend, our LaSalle men's baseball team will visit the Davidson Wildcats for a 3-game series in their first A10 conference matchup of the season. The Explorers entered this game with a record of 12-8. They are coming off a big win against Fairleigh Dickinson, where they won 19-9. Davidson has a record of 10-6, but are currently riding a 4-game winning streak. The Explorers have had multiple players contribute to their recent wins. A major factor for LaSalle has been senior Ben Faso, who hit his 3rd home run of the season while recording 2 doubles and a single against Fairleigh Dickinson. The most impactful player for Davidson has been sophomore Alex Mardini, who has a .308 batting average and had 2 hits with an RBI in a 4-1 win over Presbyterian. LaSalle is going against a Wildcat team with strong pitching, which is going to be their biggest challenge going into this game. They have only allowed 4 runs in their last 4 games. It is essential the Explorers play well offensively. For SportsLine, I'm Gia Lancey.
Thanks, Gia.
Yeah, thank you, Gia. So the first thing we need to talk about is Ben Fazzo, I feel like.
You see his name everywhere.
He's been an absolute star
Yeah.
for the team. I think he hit a couple home runs just last weekend.
For sure.
And Tom Gola Arena. Hank DeVincent Field.
Well, we got to move on from it, team. We don't want to, but we have to move on.
Hank DeVincent Field is not a small park to hit the ball out of, and he hit a couple here just last weekend. So you got to be impressed with what you've seen from him. And Matt Holt on the mound has been really, really solid for the Explorers. He's picked up a few awards in conference, in the Big Five. But yeah, you have to like their chances with those 2 guys. Unfortunately, Holt can't pitch for them every game.
I mean, with the pitchers in general, I think for like 3 weeks straight, one of our headlines was a pitcher getting an honor. So, I mean, I get that they've dropped, these last couple games, but I think they started out strong. I think there's room for potential there.
Yeah, I
So,
agree.
with that being said, we've got picks.
Yeah, I know I seemed a little bit positive there, but I don't have very much confidence in the Explorers against Davidson.
Do you ever?
I have us getting swept 3-0.
Well, just leave it to Paula to say that LaSalle. All right, where's my... All right, well, I picked LaSalle to win 2-1.
Yes. And then Gia has her pick, so here's Gia.
I think Davidson's going to win the series 2-1.
Thanks, Gia. All right.
So, I mean, you're the positive one.
I'm the
again.
positive one.
I mean, Davidson's a tough team, and it's a team. This is my theory on baseball, especially early on in the season. A team down south has more time to practice, more time to go outside than a team up north. So it's kind of tough for a team like LaSalle, who has only had a certain number of practices outside.
And now it matters just because we're hopping into conference play. So anything goes now, I feel.
Yeah, we'll check it out. That just about wraps it up for us this week. If you can't make it out to see the Explorer Report, be sure to tune in next week for our coverage. Keep up with this weekend's other sporting events by visiting goexplorers.com or check out this week's edition of The Collegian.
Also, check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/LaSalleTV and on Twitter at SportsLineLTV. We welcome you to send us your thoughts and suggestions there.
For Stephen, Isaiah, Gia, and our entire SportsLine team, I'm Tegan Lamont.
And I'm Dana Pecora. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you at the game.